Hello, this is Michael Maley, and this is Leadership Story for assignment EDL705 4.1. So I'm going to tell the story, my leadership story, which is a true story that happened in 2002, and then I'll go over the specific details of the assignment. So my leadership story begins, like I said, in 2002 when I was a fairly brand new Chief Petty Officer in the United States Navy, and I was also the command fitness leader for the entire command, which means I was responsible for physical fitness for all sailors in the command. So as part of that, we do semi-annual assessments on body composition and physical readiness as far as push-ups, sit-ups, and we do a 1.5 mile run that sailors have to meet the limits and the requirements. So I had to measure my command master chief, who was my boss in the command, and he did not make the required weight. If you don't make the required weight, then you have to be taped for your body composition assessment to determine your body fat percentage. So I measured him, and he was over the limit, which means he did not pass the body composition assessment. And when I left his office, you know, he was fine, and he wasn't happy, it was obvious, but he didn't really say anything. And I let him know that, hey, you know, Master Chief, these numbers are out of standards, and I will go ahead and take, you know, write these down. And then a day or so later, I think it was, he came to my office with a yellow sticky that had the numbers he thought his body composition was, which were in standards. To my office, and I was like, okay, Master Chief, as my brain's trying to kind of comprehend what's going on here. And as a Chief Petty Officer, we're taught that there is a higher expectation, and this is where the change mindset comes in, as to where you were a first class Petty Officer. When you go from first class Petty Officer to Chief Petty Officer, it is a major milestone in the Navy as far as going from a supervisory level to a management level, but more importantly, a Chief Petty Officer has over a 100-year tradition of that. It includes a lot of integrity, pride, and we all have an expectation of one another that is different than any other rank in any other service. So as I'm comprehending what the Command Master Chief wants me to do, I'm trying to think of how I'm going to attack this obstacle. So I decided, well, I'm going to have to remeasure him again, but this time I want to have a witness. So I went and got another Chief Petty Officer and had him come with me. And I went down and I measured him again, and he was over the limit as expected. And I just said, Master Chief, sorry, but you know, these are the real numbers, and that, you know, you're not in standards. He was not happy, but he didn't say anything. And I think having the witness there probably helped it not turn into a more awkward situation. So that was springtime frame. And the following September, when we receive our evaluations, my evaluation dropped from what it was the prior one, from an early promote to a must promote, which is a really significant drop. Now, I was told it was because of other issues. Someone else deserved it more, and it just the way it worked out. They never brought up the fact that the Command Master Chief was trying to lie about his numbers, which I kind of think we all knew that was the reason. And I knew that going into when I was going to attack this, I knew that was a possibility that could happen. But I was willing to go ahead and jeopardize my career but save my integrity, because that's what is expected of a Chief Petty Officer, which is not necessarily the same expectation of a first class. So that was a big eye-opener for me when I got my eval and then I was lower. Now, I was a Chief Petty Officer then, and I did retire as Command Master Chief, so it did prevent me from promoting, but it probably made it a little more difficult. It probably took me longer than maybe it would have. But it didn't really matter at the time, because I was more concerned about maintaining the integrity of myself and the integrity of being a Chief Petty Officer. So now I'll go over kind of some of the details for this assignment as far as, let's see here. So again, the change idea is changing the mindset and the expectation of leadership as far as when it comes to integrity of a Chief Petty Officer compared to a First Class Petty Officer. We go through a lot of training as a first class when we're selected for chief, and they teach us that there is a higher expectation of what you should do and what is the right thing. And they always taught us that a real chief will always do the right thing, even if it jeopardizes their own career. That is not the same expectation for a first class. Do we think it was a happy ending? Well, I think it was definitely a happy ending for a few reasons. One, I maintained my integrity, and two, I was able to share this story, further down the road with other sailors who could learn from this. Other chief petty officers, other first class petty officers who could learn from my experiences and understand what is going to be expected of them. The other part that makes it a happy ending is that I did overcome the obstacle of the lower eval, and I ended up promoting to command master chief and command master chief later on. So even though I did stand up for it, and eventually it didn't affect my entire career. And I think that goes to at the time when I was written at eval, my maintenance officer, he did write a really good comment in my eval that basically said it wasn't a decline in performance. It was just based on numbers and so on. So that helped kind of the blow of getting a lower eval than expected. So that is my leadership story. It is about integrity. It is about the change mindset of leadership from a first class petty officer role to a chief petty officer role, and understanding what that means of that huge change of leadership style and leadership expectations. So that is my leadership story, and I hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next time.